here because you know something. That there's something wrong with the world. You don't know what it is, but it's there.
Don't worry, don't be afraid, ever. This is just a ride.
Vibrations, I'm picking up good vibrations. I'm picking up good vibrations. I'm picking up good vibrations.
Children's stories with their farmyard favourites at the table in a different disguise. Children's stories with their farmyard favourites at the table in a different disguise.
Beautiful creature must die. This beautiful creature must die. A death for no reason, and death for no reason is murder. And the flesh you so fancifully fry is not succulent, tasty or kind. It's death for no reason, and death for no reason is murder.
Welcome to what is likely to be a controversial, contentious edition of Good Vibrations. And I make no apology for that. There are going to be people listening to this that will probably be offended by some of the information and they'll get very defensive about it. And so be it, because, you know, truth is truth. It is what it is. And as I've said many times before, the truth is often uncomfortable, unsettling, unwelcome. But one thing that it always is consistently is the truth. And you're either somebody that can handle the truth and wants to go wherever it takes them, or you're somebody that cherry picks bits and pieces of truth that they want to apply in their lives and leaves out the bits that don't suit them. So it'll become clear what I mean by this as we progress. This podcast is all about veganism and the treatment of animals from a moral perspective. And it ties in with natural law. So I'm looking forward to having a really good conversation today and really getting into this whole subject and exploring it in a way that I think very few podcasts of this nature have gone into before. So I'm going to be chatting today with Nathan Riddett, who is described as an activist, hemp advocate, teacher of natural law, and soon to break the mould and become the paradox of a truth-speaking estate agent, and shortly after a truth-speaking politician. Nathan, welcome, mate.
Thank you, Mark. Yeah, very well said as well. And it's a pleasure to be with you to talk about this.
So you and I met at the Truth and Freedom All-Dayer event towards the end of last year, and we continued corresponding from there. And I mentioned online a few weeks ago that I wanted to do a podcast on the subject of veganism from a moral perspective. And you said that you would happily take on the job and you'd like to talk about it. So why is this subject so important to you personally, and why did you wish to take up that opportunity?
Yeah, sure. Well, it's because that's exactly why I went vegan in the first place. It was purely from a morality perspective, and the understanding of objective morality and applying that in my life. To take this information on board, you have to apply it in your life. If you it is looking in the mirror. If you want to see a better world, you need to be a better person. It's a collective thing. That's how reality is formed. So you can't be against just human suffering and slavery. You have to be against all slavery, and that encompasses all beings. Right. As above, so below.
Right. So we've got this concept of do no harm, which people are probably quite familiar with. Do not treat others in a way you would not wish to be treated yourself. Central tenet of natural law, universal law, whatever else you want to call it. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people look at that and probably take it on board and examine it, and they take that to mean do not treat other humans in a way you would not wish to be treated yourself, and do no harm within the context of other humans. But really, in its broadest context, it means do no harm to other living sentient beings, human or not, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Agreed, yes. Any living being, yeah.
Okay. So we're talking specifically about veganism from a moral standpoint, rather than people adopting that lifestyle for their own personal means because they feel it'll improve their health. So you do speak to a lot of people that in a kind of fad, trendy, hipster sort of way, may well have taken on a vegan lifestyle because they feel it's good for them and they'll feel better in themselves and, you know, they'll look slimmer and fitter. But it's all about doing it because it's morally right. And then any health benefits that come as a result of that are happy bonuses, right? And we're doing it because you know instinctively that it's right action. Perhaps you can explain further how that whole dynamic works of right action.
We're born into a system of moral relativism. So I think this is where we're all set astray from the outset, where government and legislators can make a right out of thin air by rubber stamping it. Eh? They can sign a piece of paper and magically make something a right. But obviously, you know, it doesn't work like that. You can't cross an imaginary border, and all of a sudden, but the other side of this imaginary line, something was immoral, and then all of a sudden, it's now moral. We've crossed an imaginary line. So we're confused right from the outset because we're born into moral relativism, and so we don't objectively really know right from wrong. So once you take on board objective morality and right from wrong, you're left with the responsibility of putting it into action. So that would be right action in the world. And, well, you know, it's the allegory of all of the saviour figures in religions as well, that a lot of religious people wouldn't actually take on board the role of the saviour figure and take right action. You know, they would just absolve the responsibility and dogmatically listen to the preacher. But,
right.
So that's objective morality, right and wrong. So that's what it's all about, taking right action, yeah.
Okay. So I became a vegetarian 28 years ago, and I knew back then that eating animals was morally wrong, and I wanted to withdraw my participation in that whole system. But it wasn't until last year that I became fully vegan, and I was of the viewpoint for many years that while the eating of flesh was clearly wrong, dairy was okay because no animals died to provide it. But you come to realise when you do the research that if you're going to be brutally honest with yourself and face up to the truth, that the dairy industry and the meat industry are intrinsically linked and that cruelty runs throughout both of them. So from that point of view, being a vegetarian is only a halfway house. You have to go all the way and cut
Absolutely.
out all animal products to be making a true moral difference, right?
Yeah, it's a half truth. Yeah, I mean, I was vegetarian for a few months. You know, to go from I didn't go all the way straight away. I did it in a stepwise progress. But yeah, vegetarianism was the first step, and then realizing that it is a half truth, and you are really pitching your tent halfway. Because you know, some people would say, "Oh, veganism's too extreme," or you know, well, if you want to live a half truth, if you don't want to go all the way with the truth, and then that would bring in a quote from Buddha. You know, there's only two mistakes you can go on the path to truth. That's not starting and not going all the way. So you know, you've got to go all the way with this stuff.
Right. And I used to get quite upset at vegans pointing out that I hadn't gone far enough, you know, because I was vegetarian for many years. It would come up in conversation. Every now and again, I would encounter a vegan that would say, "You're not doing enough. You need to lose the dairy. You need to lose the eggs." And I used to get quite upset because I thought, well, I'm doing my bit, you know, I've taken the responsibility to become vegetarian and I'm not contributing towards the meat industry, but I can see now that they were right. It was just my ego had a hard time dealing with it and I didn't want to hear it. And so I can understand why others don't want to hear these arguments. But again, it comes down to truth is truth. And you either want it or you don't, or you're either in a spiritually mature enough place to handle it or you're not, I guess.
Sure. Well, yeah, in the ancient times, you used to say ignorance is the true evil, but nowadays it's ignorance is bliss, right? But in actual fact, you know, ignorance isn't the same as innocence, though, Mark, is it? So if you want to lie to yourself about these things, then that's one of the biggest mistakes you can make. You know, you got to stop lying to yourself and fall in love with the truth. You know, but yeah, people don't want to take the personal responsibility that comes alongside that, and you know, I guess what you said, you know, is spiritually immature, spiritual infants, not wanting to really grow up,
yeah,
and take right action.
guess it happens when it's ready. And you also get halfway vegetarians who won't eat animal flesh, so they won't eat steaks or pork or whatever, but for some reason they think it's less harmful for them to just eat chicken or fish or seafood. You know, you encounter these people. Oh, I don't eat meat, I only eat fish. And, you know, well, fish are still living sentient creatures, right?
Yeah,
or they'll say, oh, I'm look after my health, I don't eat red meat, just chicken for me. So, you know, halfway vegetarians.
Yeah, more cognitive dissonance, and meat eaters that have pets. You know, I love animals. I've got a dog and a cat. What are you having for dinner? Pig and cow. You know, it's the same. Yeah, exactly the same.
So, in all my years of being a vegetarian, I find this subject area is very contentious for the average meat-eating person to get into, and they do get very defensive when they're confronted with it. So, just as an example, you might be in a social situation about to eat. Maybe you're out for a meal with a bunch of people. This has happened to me so many times over the years. And it will just come up that you're vegetarian. You know, maybe you're ordering the food, yours arrives, somebody notices that there's no meat on your plate, and it comes out that you're a vegetarian. And then, you know, people would jump on it straight away and say, well, why are you a vegetarian? So you give your reason, which is that you feel it's morally wrong to support wholesale death and slaughter. And straight away you get comments like, well, I'll never give up my meat. Or then all the arguments come out like human digestive systems are designed to eat meat. And you think, well, you're the one that just asked the question, pal. You know, you asked me why I'm vegetarian. I've given you my reason. And now you're getting all defensive and indignant and saying, well, I'm not going to give up my meat. Nothing's going to make me give up my steaks. You know, why can't people just accept what you've said? And why does it now have to turn into an argument? It's like, you know, if you're a religious person, it comes up in conversation that you're a Muslim. I think most people wouldn't then say, well, why are you a Muslim? Why do you believe that? People would just accept that you're a Muslim and be done with it. But when it comes to being a vegetarian or a vegan, it invariably leads to a long-ass discussion that you never wanted in the first place.
Well, it confronts their core belief system, and it really is a big ego thing as well, because, you know, there's a blanket. You can make a blanket statement that it is unnecessary to consume dead animal flesh. So why do people do it? And it's because they like it or because they want to do it. You know, so the necessity isn't there. So it is purely an ego thing. And, you know, like if you go to an expensive restaurant and I can have a fillet. Look at me eating my fillet steak, you know, because I can, and I've got control and over these animals as well. So it's a big ego thing, and when you come from a moral perspective, the ego doesn't like it because it's confronted with information that could possibly make for right action, but because they don't want to, because they like the taste, you know, or there's an ego element to it as well, definitely.
Right. So I thought what we could do with this chat is I want to hit you with some of the comments that you get very often in apparent defense of meat eating. So a lot of people listening will be familiar with this. I know you will be yourself. You know, all these comments that come up, the same old arguments that you hear time and time again. And I thought maybe you could address them one by one and just give your response to these common things that you hear people say. So can we do that?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so one of the most common ones you hear all the time in defense of eating meat is, our teeth were designed to tear at flesh. We get this one all the time. So what would be your counter to that?
Well, I mean, we'll apply reason to all of these questions. And if we look into it, so, I'd say, apply the trivium on all of this. Do your homework, knowledge, apply knowledge, then process it so we've got some understanding, and then the wisdom aspect of it would be the right action, okay? So if we look at teeth and, carnivores, omnivores, they're very pointy, they open up and down, they don't go from side to side. And we are practically identical to frugivores, which are fruit, vegetable, nut-eating animals. So just purely from the teeth aspect, no, we're not carnivores or omnivores. We're not herbivores either. I'd say it's frugivores if we really look at it and how we fit into these groups. but without jumping the gun and about the other questions, but if we looking at anatomy of a human, we are much closer to herbivores with the digestive system, because carnivores have a much shorter digestive system, so that they can flush the rotting flesh through them quicker, so they don't pick up all of the sort of trans fats and cholesterols and things that lead to heart disease, blocked arteries, cancers. So, well, not just that, but carnivores have claws as well. They're on 4 legs, so they're adept to chasing down animals and eating them. We're much more like herbivores or frugivores. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so what you often hear people say is we're omnivores, we're designed to eat a varied diet, a bit of everything, plant-based stuff and meat-based stuff, and our digestive systems are set up that way, but you just addressed that one, of course.
Yeah, the digestive system as well. I mean, carnivores have a much higher acidic, I think it's somewhere between 10 and 1,000 times more acidic than ours. We're more of an alkaline one, which goes entirely along the line of herbivores. I think our the good bacteria that's in our guts, flora, that's the same as herbivores. We haven't got carnivorous. We need to cook the meat as well. If we start going around eating raw squirrels, we'd get all sorts of disease and parasites.
Right. Okay. So then you often hear that we can only get the full range of proteins that we need from a meat-based diet. And people say vegans' health suffers as a result of not being able to get these from what they eat. And it makes them weak and, underperforming. So what's your answer to that one?
Yeah, it's just untrue, straight off the bat. Well, if you look at some of the strongest animals on the planet, they're vegan. Elephants, rhinos, gorillas, horses, deers, and then there's a lot of David Haye, the boxer. He's vegan. There's more vegans in the UFC. Olympic weightlifters and athletes are going vegan because they're getting their protein. We get our protein. I mean, the word nutrition, I understand, derives from nut. The word nut is in nutrition, right? So they're packed with nutrition and proteins. You mentioned that I'm a hemp advocate, and the hemp seed's actually one of the only complete foods on the planet. You can literally live on hemp seed with the protein balance, the omegas, essential oils, and that's not widely known. A little fact on the hemp seed actually is. There's a handful of centenarian hotspots around the world, you'd call them, and that's where the average age of the populace would be over 100. And the one thing in common that all of these centenarian hotspots have is that the hemp seed is a staple part of their diet, alongside other superfoods, organic superfoods as well. So. Yeah, no, we do not need meat. It's not true. We can have a very healthy lifestyle and well, we're actually healthier without meat. Let's be honest about it.
Right.
A high meat diet causes cancers and cholesterol issues and heart disease.
Okay. So a lot of people will tell you that they tried vegetarianism once, but it didn't agree with them. And they'll say, my body is built for a meat-based diet. Being vegetarian or vegan isn't for everyone. Some people's metabolism or, bodily structure is set up for meat more so than others. Is there any truth to that, do you think?
I don't think so. No, I'd say that they didn't do their homework. They probably didn't put enough nutrition in their body.
Or people say some people will say they tried vegetarianism, they got ill. It made them very ill, and they went back to meat and they were okay.
They weren't putting enough nutrition in their body. Then you do need to make sure you're getting enough nutrition. So do your homework. Look at what you need. Make sure you're getting your fruits and veg and your proteins. Your beans, pulses, nuts. You coconut oil. I understand the only thing that we can lack from not eating meat would be creatine, and which is only found in beef. and you can get creatine capsules if you really think creatine is that important. So no, if you do it properly, you can get everything you need from plants, from a plant-based diet. I think that there's an old saying, that I might butcher this, but that there's a cure. So I think it's an African American saying that that there's a fruit or herb for every disease on Earth.
Right.
That
nature provides for all these things.
Yeah.
Okay.
But Big Pharma wouldn't agree with that. They say they can't. They wouldn't be able to make much money if celery could cure heart disease.
Well, the absurd thing is that the pharmaceutical cartels just try and synthesize all these plant-based remedies and create chemical versions of them. Can't help thinking they could cut all that process out and just use the bloody natural product in the first place. But I guess there's not much money in that, as you say.
No, that's right. They're doing that. GW Pharma are doing that with the cannabis plant, the synthesizing Sativex as a painkiller. But we I think both of us know the benefits that hemp has for humans and how it could be utilised if we weren't enslaved, if human slavery didn't exist. So we need to end that. I think that veganism's a way out of that as well. Because I said already, we can't be against human suffering and slavery and not be against animal suffering and slavery. And once we embody that and understand that and live that, then we can start making steps to becoming unenslaved ourselves. So which will lead to true prosperity and lack of suffering.
Yeah. Okay, so some people will say to you, most meat eaters only eat it because it comes pre-prepared and served up for them. They could never bring themselves to actually kill the animal themselves. And then these people will go on to say, I wouldn't have a problem with it. Maybe they hunt animals themselves. So they say, I'm no hypocrite. I'm happy to kill my food and it's okay. So they think somehow that's morally superior to those that couldn't possibly kill an animal but are happy to eat it when it's served up to them. What do we say to people like that?
Well, I would ask, is the animal's life yours to take? And the answer is always going to be no.
Sure.
And the animals' lives aren't ours to take, so it's always going to be wrong. However we want to look at it, those aren't lives that we should be taking. They're not our lives to take.
Right. So these people might come back to you with the counter argument that the natural world is built on survival of the fittest, and you have animals killing each other every day in order to survive. It's the food chain, and they might say it's no different when we eat animals. We're just playing our part in that whole process. We're a superior race to these animals. We're stronger than them, and it's just meant to be that way. We're doing just what animals do in the natural world.
Social Darwinism, that sounds like. So people are buying the diseased and poisoned mindset of social Darwinism, where they think they have the right to dominion over lesser beings, and we're all one. We all live on this planet, and no human is greater than the next. But through this survival of the fittest mindset, which it's a satanic mindset, which is sold to us in the first place. We're not animals. We have a neocortex which separates us from the animal kingdom, which enables us to higher order thinking and moral culpability. So we can build space shuttles and contemplate whether it's moral to go and kill another animal or not. So we are different to the animal kingdom. They don't have the capacity for, you don't get a lion pondering whether it's moral to kill the gazelle. So that's the difference between us. But people buy into social Darwinism. That's a diseased mindset. So
right,
yeah. But these are all excuses, for people not actually accepting the truth, because it comes the burden of personal responsibility and thinking and taking action comes along with it.
Right. But they're all ones that I know you all have heard many times over, and I certainly do. Every time an argument blows up on Facebook, somebody posts a vegan-related subject, and all these comments come out. Same old comments every time. So here's another one for you. Plants are living, and they have feelings too. So eating plants is no better than eating animals, people say.
Yeah, it's a good one, that. And there is an element of truth to that. And not either of us are a fan of the BBC, but I watched a documentary, The Life of Plants, I think it was, and it shows the the connectivity, and there is a connection between us and all life on this planet and the universe. But plants respond to music, for example, and plants or trees. There's been a study where there was some damage being done to the bark on the perimeter of a forest, and what was happening further into the forest was that the trees were building and developing thicker barks because there was some communication going on that they knew that the damage was occurring. But let's apply some reason to this comment about plants are living things as well. Yes, they are, but they regenerate for a start. So you could pick an apple, and there will be apples on the tree next year. You can't do that to a living being. You can't take off its leg and expect its leg to regrow.
Right.
They have a brain and a nervous system. Not just the fact that they will run away in sheer terror, and you can see it in their eyes. These animals run away in fear. Plants literally offer their fruit to us. It's there being exposed, ready to pick. And we're fully, as humans are designed. We haven't got the teeth and the physical structure to hunt. Try and catch a squirrel, run around on four legs and go and catch a squirrel. I'd like to see any human do that and then eat it without cooking it. The whole thing, just leaving the skeleton. Plants offer their fruit to us. They don't run away in fear. They haven't got the brain and nervous system. Although I agree on a fundamental level, there is a life or a plant consciousness, if you like, and we could go quite deep and the shamanistic cultures in South America, where the Shipibo shaman tribes will do ayahuasca ceremonies, and they communicate with the plants, and that's where they get all of their remedies and medicines from. There's like 250,000 plant species in the Amazon, and then they've managed to put the ingredients for medicines together by communicating with the plants under entheogenic substances. Then we get people. I've heard stories of people, having an ayahuasca ceremony, if you want to say it, and coming back and literally being in tears for treading on grass and getting upset for breathing in air. So how far are we going to start feeling guilty for breathing in air,
right,
or are we going to apply reason and realise that
you've got to draw a line somewhere?
Yeah, they're offering the fruit, and they don't run away in fear. That's that's how I look at it, from applying reason to it. When we haven't evolved to the state of being able to meditate and take in ethereal energy and survive on chi and prana, or the subtle energies that surround us.
Yeah.
Not all of us, some have. Not many though.
Yeah. So you also get this kind of New Age type argument connected to that, where people will say that in spirit form, animals agree to give up their bodies, their flesh, to be hunted and to provide food for humans, and because they pre-consented to it, it's okay. So I don't know how you would divine the fact that a particular animal has pre-consented to this, but I've heard spiritual mediums and sort of New Age gurus say that when an animal has consented to being eaten, it's okay. I would wager that these people are meat eaters themselves, just a guess, But that's an interesting one, isn't it? Or it's a bizarre one, maybe.
Yeah, I've not heard that.
I've heard it a few times in conferences and stuff.
Okay, I'd say, well, why do they run away? Why are they in so much fear?
Right.
As with nearly all the New Age, it's just New Age bullshit. Evil is necessary. Never get angry. This is all excuses to not grow a pair and take right action in the world.
Right. And to use that one, that the animal consented to it, so it's okay, is it seems to be a way of getting yourself off the hook if you're someone that is of a spiritual disposition, but you happen to like a slice of bacon on a Sunday morning. It's your way out.
Yeah, it's BS, mate. Yeah, that's what I would say to that. And
You mean it's
along
bullshit?
with most, yeah, I mean, there are some truths to the New Age with the chakras and the benefits of meditating, but you have to do a little bit more than that. It's about taking right action, and that's the whole part of the New Age movement. It's making people, taking away the sacred masculine element of right action. It's demasculizing men, and that's it's another religion.
Right. So you got one that's connected to when you hear people say, "Oh, I hunt my animals myself. I kill them myself. I don't have a problem with eating them that way." That's when you hear people say they only eat meat that was hand-reared on local farms. And they make the point that the animal had a nicer life than those in miserable factory farms. So the end result is still the same, which is the animal dies in pain, misery and fear. But because they had a nicer life along the way, people think somehow it's more moral. And it's much better than, buying your meat from a supermarket which has been reared on factory farms. Any validity to that?
Well, the only justification I could draw a parallel with that would be, well, that's a good excuse to go and cull the elites, then, isn't it?
Okay.
But no, I mean, it's not their life to take. It's that life belongs to the animal and
Right.
not the person that's taking it. So it's always going to be wrong.
Yeah. And then the last one of these then to hit you with is when people say, I just like the taste of it. I can't get that taste of bacon or steak from anywhere else. I just like it. So I suppose that's the weakest one of all, really.
Yeah, I think we mentioned that earlier on. That's purely ego because I like it, because I want to. So this is, the base senses, the base desires, which is how society's formed. It's a satanic mindset keeping people in that base desire nature. Hedonism. It's spiritual infancy, and it's just an excuse.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. So let's talk a bit about what happens on an energetic level when you consume meat.
I think it's interesting.
Yeah, I think you and I would agree that we live in a satanic society in which evil is the prevalent emotion, fear-based, low-density energy.
Evidently, yeah, if anybody's paying any attention. Yeah,
it's been manipulated to be that way. And so few people who listen to any kind of alternative information can reasonably disagree with this, I would say. So the ruling elite that we have are dark occult practitioners. They understand the nature of reality. They understand how to manipulate energy. And they have a vested interest in the morphogenic field in which we all have to live, being poisoned with fear-based low-density vibrations. So when you think about it, what better way to keep this constantly topped up than with the daily misery, torture and horrific deaths of millions of animals? So you have an industry in place worldwide which ensures this fear-based emotion gets fed into the morphogenic field every day. Yeah,
I agree. I mean, when we start looking at it, so we do a bit of homework. And we could bring Tesla technology into this and ancient megalithic structures, because they were built on ley lines, which are the energetic. They're giving off more subtle energies than other parts of the earth. That's why the megalithic structures were built there. And as above, so below. The same applies to a human body, where Chinese acupuncture works, on the meridians of a human body. So I'm of the opinion that, and there's plenty of evidence that points in this direction, is that the ancient cultures, certainly if we look at the ancient Egyptians with their network of, I think it's about 60 pyramids, all based on the ley lines, and they're operating on a very similar way that Tesla's Wardenclyffe Tower did, with the I think it's an aquifer system, like running water system underneath. There's an excellent documentary, the Pyramid Code, I think episode 2 in particular, that explains all this and relates it with Tesla and with the pyramids. But I did an interesting exercise, and I sent you the images as well, didn't I, Mark? Where I overlaid slaughterhouse locations with ley lines, and I did it with America and I did it with England, and I believe that there is a definite correlation there. Looking at it, they're not all on ley lines, but I'd say over half of them are. Certainly the larger ones. Certainly when you look at the English one up in the northwest part of England, where there's quite a lot of ley lines running up, that's where largely most of the slaughterhouses are.
Right.
So yeah, the real war, and there is a war going on, and it really is on our consciousness, and that, you know, keeping it, as you said, in a low vibration. So using the knowledge that they have, which has clearly been used in the past, so they're literally using it in the opposite way to what the ancient Egyptians did. So, I mean, I've been taught in Reiki, so I've got an understanding on sort of subtle energies myself. But the ancient Egyptians, it seems that not only did they use the pyramids for electrical power generation, but it would be an uplifting as well, because it's using, sort of amplifying the positive energy to uplifting the culture and civilization. Whereas if you're putting abattoirs and slaughterhouses on these ley lines, you're doing the opposite as to what our ancients did. You're lowering the frequencies and the vibratory energy.
So that would be a two-way process on these ley line vortex points, right? So anything you place on one of these points can be absorbing the energy that's generated from it, but also it can be feeding back into the energy system and putting vibrational states into it as well, right?
It appears that, yes, yeah, and I guess that would be the true definition between magic and sorcery. So magic would be for using knowledge and will to take action for the greater good and the uplifting of human consciousness, right? The benefit of the greater good. Okay. Whereas if you're using it for selfish or for your small group's benefit, then that would be sorcery, because you're not. It's not for the greater good. It's for selfish reasons. So yeah, that could call it sorcery, I suppose. Yeah.
Right. Yes, fascinating stuff. The maps that you sent, where you've charted the positions of prominent slaughterhouses and you've compared those with ley lines, prominent ley lines. I'll include those images in the notes to this show if people want to take a look at those. And probably the best example of a sighting such as this, which I mentioned to you, is the United Nations building in New York, Manhattan, being situated on a former abattoir site. So of all the places they could have chosen to put that building, it just happened to be a former abattoir. You know, would that be by accident?
Well, if you're a coincidence theorist, there's quite a lot of coincidences when you start piecing pieces of the puzzle together.
Well, there are. It seems no other site would do.
Yeah, there's no coincidence there, Mark.
Yeah, I feel so. So we've got these dark occult practitioners, Satanists basically, running the show, and they've seen to it that believing we need to keep murdering animals for food has become a daily reality for most people, and it's considered normal. You know, meat eating is completely normal in society that we have, and it's veganism that's weird and strange and will get raised eyebrows and, whispers. Yeah. And that's exactly the kind of dynamic that you would want if you were of that mindset and intent. If you are a group of Satanists that want fear-based negative energy everywhere, you would want people to consider it normal to have to keep slaughtering animals to eat them. So those people falling for this are giving the controllers exactly what they want, and they're helping to perpetuate the ongoing evil.
Yeah, we'll come back to moral relativism, and another part of Satanism is duality. So, the moral relative. And I'll tell you what, I'll tell a little story, and I can combine both of these. So, I've got a young boy now. He's 2, and I've been embracing truth for a few years. I've fallen in love with it, and so the time's come for my little boy to find a nursery. So we've gone out to find a nursery, and I've had a look round. And there's a table in the nursery, and there's loads of animals, and sand play, which is great. Pigs, sheep, giraffes, lions, elephants, loads of animals. So obviously, you're teaching kids to love animals, which is good. That's right.
Okay.
We've all got an affinity with other living beings, unless we're suffering from psychopathy, eh?
Right.
But, and then literally a metre and a half away, I opened the door and there was a lunch menu, and every course, every day, there's either beef or lamb or pork or chicken. So they're teaching to love animals. So love animals, but eat them. And that's obviously putting anybody in duality, whether they realise it or not, because you can't love animals and eat their flesh.
Right.
So they sell us moral relativism. So we don't really know right from wrong in the first place, and
there's relativism there, because you touched on this earlier. People will think a cat or a puppy is really cute, but they won't mind eating a lamb. So there's certain animals that are, and they'd be horrified if somebody killed a puppy, but it's okay to kill a lamb or a calf. So certain animals have certain, they're designated in different ways, whether it's okay to kill them or not. How the hell did that come about?
Yeah, well, it's the cognitive dissonance is, and the duality. So if you're keeping someone in duality, which is a part of Satanism, right? That's the two horns of the Baphomet, or 11 as well, which is in numerology they call that duality.
Right.
If you're keeping someone in duality, they're not really ever going to know themselves and come into the truth, because you're lying to yourself all along. And when you add in like money as well into moral relativism, then people make easy justifications to compromise their integrities, because they've just made a few extra quid. So I mean, it starts off right at the word go, where we're born into a system where there's no real right from wrong, and everything's relative, and everything can be justified, and you can love some animals and eat the other ones. It's just and this is where I think right from the outset, Satanism gets us and leads us astray, and it does affect the vibratory frequency of the being that's consuming low vibratory rotting flesh, and that's what it is. And have you seen those I've forgotten what those photos are called, where they're showing the energy of it begins with K. I've forgotten what it's called.
Kinetic.
Close. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it literally shows, like, not the aura, but like the energy given off from. You look at the difference between a bit of meat and an apple. An apple is literally, you can see the energy emanating from it,
right?
But the meat's got barely any. Yeah. Well.
And as well as meat eating, they've seen to it that we have things like customs, traditions, like fox hunting in this country, and game shooting, blasting birds from the sky. The royals do it. It's considered to be, an aristocratic pursuit, perfectly acceptable, very cultured. And then bullfighting in Spain. All these things are just acceptable because they've been designated customs. And people say, oh, well, it's just what we do in this country, But it's just more ways of keeping the pain, fear and death going.
Yeah, and yes, I do agree, and it's enforcing that duality as well, and cognitive dissonance. So people aren't ever really, they're not getting to know themselves because they're lying to themselves, whether they even realise it or not. And yeah, like you say, it's keeping it going. It's keeping that vibration low. Yeah, and it's disgusting, really. But alongside that, we get going off on a tangent. Just briefly, we get sold that the police and military are there for the greater good as well. They're not really keeping the elites safe from us, and they're not really enforcing the laws that benefit the money makers and the real elites.
No, of course not.
So yeah, they all go hand in hand, and you need like putting the pieces together, and it does go deep, and it is uncomfortable. It is unpopular. And I might. Some people might think I sound arrogant, and by saying all of this stuff. But does it bear any difference on the truth or not?
Yeah.
Does it make anything less true or not? That's the question. And no, it doesn't.
Well, yeah.
The truth is what it is.
And you can turn on the TV on any given evening and you get all these cooking programs, whether it's Jamie Oliver or Gordon Ramsay or God knows who else, and it's all meat consumption. You know, they're all pushing it. Yeah, chuck a bit of pork in, have some scallops, you know, have a bit of chicken. And it's just reinforcing this idea that it's completely normal. This is what people do. So we have enough
the normalisation of it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we have enough. There's no prominent vegetarian or vegan chefs on TV, you notice. And so
I don't watch any TV actually, Mark. So
right, okay. Well,
I unplugged. I refuse to pay a license that's going to fund paedophiles, and so should everybody else.
I absolutely am with that. But you know, we get the propaganda shoved down our throats the whole time through the mainstream that meat eating is totally normal. So let's hear the other side of the argument. You know, that's what we're doing here. We're giving the counter argument to all these things. And there's not enough of these discussions out there, I feel. And what's really disgusting to me is, you know, it's bad enough from a moral standpoint, as you've pointed out, for humans to be arrogant enough to think that they have dominion over other living creatures. And just because we got the physical might, we can slaughter them and eat them. But on top of that, we have an industry that is built around making profit off of this death and this horror. Yeah. So it's bad. It's bad enough taking their lives, but then you have individuals making vast sums of money off of doing that. So it's adding insult to injury. Yeah, it's even more immoral then.
Yeah, well, that's the whole military-industrial complex, Mark? I mean, what's war all about?
Well, yeah,
and and you've seen this this 22 push-ups for 22 days thing, and the symbology that they're using now to promote that.
Yeah,
but you know. What's really going on here, and we touched on the war on consciousness and keeping the vibrations low, it's the disconnection from the higher self. So, you know, because my meat, I like it, it tastes nice, I've got power over the other animals to do this. This is the disconnection from the higher self, the true self, that always wants to do the right thing, that wants to do the right thing for the greater good of humankind and any living being. And that's the disease. And it's the disconnection from true care. So, you know, it's because people don't really have true care because they don't care that another animal's suffering or that's died so that they can enjoy the taste of their burger. Right? I think that's what it comes down to, really.
Something that's interesting is when you look at the biographies of famous serial killers, you often hear that they abused animals when they were children. So before they graduated to their murderous tendencies on other humans, they would, you know, torture animals. And it was a sign of psychopathy and, you know, what was to come. And isn't that interesting? You know, no care for animals goes on to mean no care for humans or anything else.
Yeah, I can see that. And, you know, well, as you pointed out at the beginning, an ex-estate agent, you know, I believe I had some traits. You know, I was a second-degree psychopath to a certain degree. In the fact that, you know, the way society is, and if you embrace career, and you know you've got ambition, and you want to climb up the corporate career ladder, you've kind of got to tread on other people to get up there, and you have got to be self-centered and only care about yourself.
Sure.
But I think there's a good documentary called I Am Fishhead, which talks about psychopathy and how the psychopaths end up in control of these corporations and end up in prominent positions of power. So yeah, again, it's society though, and you know when we look at Satanism, and if we were to look at the 9 satanic sins, you'd basically be reading out 9 traits in society.
Yeah.
And so it's propagated, and yeah, it's to keep the duality, keep reinforcing, normalising wrongs, normalising bad behaviour, wrong behaviour. Yeah.
Yeah, just making it acceptable because everyone does it.
Yeah, and you know it'd be on all of the mainstream TV shows. It'd be in you know hip hop videos and music and in the papers. I flicked through the paper a few days ago, the Sun last week, and I was just I was disgusted with the lies that they're selling.
Yeah.
There's a big article on the demonizing of cannabis and hemp, which was all based in lies. None of it was true. And then there's an article basically normalizing giving your children up to foster homes because they're troubled. And and then this is coming from a really egoic point of view as well. The mother was saying, "Poor me, look at what you're doing to me and our family. Don't worry about the fact that she's been raped, and now you don't care and you don't want to deal with it, and you want to put her into a foster home." So yeah, it's as you know, Mark, they own the publishing houses, they own the media, so they can propagate this very, very successfully, yeah.
Well, there's one good thing the sun is for, and it involves the bathroom. But anyway, so I often contemplate the combined effect of the daily slaughter and violence that occurs in the natural world. As we said, animals kill other animals. And I just wonder why it has to be that way, because, it's horrific, the way in which some of these animals die. It's horrible. And you often wonder whether that whole scenario is as a result of this satanic reality in which we find ourselves. Is it because this reality has been manipulated to be evil and to be based in this fear-based energy that all this stuff takes place? Are these inevitable byproducts of this energy field that we live in? And if we could collectively find a better way to live that's steeped in compassion and empathy, maybe these things might change by default in line with a new paradigm, and they might not be necessary. Have you ever thought about that?
Yeah, well, definitely, and that's something we all need to embrace. Again, if we apply the trivium, knowledge, understanding, and wisdom, and the connection with, you mentioned empathy and compassion, and true care, and then applying it. Having the courage, continual willpower. I was around my mates last night, and they're all cooking chicken fajitas, and I was hungry, and the thought entered my head. But you've got to renew the willpower and do what you know is right once you've come into that understanding, and collectively, because that is how reality is formed. Collectively, the more people that stop eating animal flesh, the less animals are going to die. And if we look at it from an environmental aspect as well, the deforestation and the amount of water that's used, the amount of feed that's used to raise livestock, that would drop. So no, it is a collective thing, and the more of us that do look in the mirror and make right changes, it's going to have a bearing on reality. It will start to change.
Because nature is goddamn cruel. There's no two ways about it.
Well, nature is, and we could go back to the dinosaurs. They were meat-eating dinosaurs. They're also herbivorous ones, which didn't. And those are some of they were the largest, strongest animals that we've walked on the face of the earth, and they all ate plants, so they weren't lacking deficient in protein and whatnot. But nature is brutal. The thing that separates us from animalistic behaviour is the neocortex, and we can comprehend morality, right and wrong.
Right.
That's what separates us from animals.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
When it's not the survival of the fittest, humans, we should all be helping each other, and we should be the caretakers and guardians of this planet, not the destroyers and consumers, right?
Right. And you often hear about this mythical golden age in which humans were supposed to be able to receive spiritual sustenance. I think you touched on this earlier. They didn't need to physically eat anything. They just got everything they need from out there. And something happened to change that dynamic. If you go for that way of thinking.
It's within the realms of possibility. But I've not spent a massive amount of time studying that or looking at that, Mark. I have to confess.
No worries.
But I can certainly see that we were being lied to on a fundamental level, and I think it goes back a long, long way. And the meat eating lies and could well be part of it. But yeah, I mean, maybe you could elaborate a little bit on that. I'm not that knowledgeable on that topic.
Well, really, it's just what I said. I've spoken to some spiritual mediums and some authors and scholars in this area, and there's an opinion that there was once this kind of golden age in which humans were much more connected to source and connected to nature, and it wasn't necessary to kill animals to eat them. In fact, you didn't need to eat anything. You just got spiritual sustenance from the divine.
I read an article, I think it was the Buddha boy in India, and this was scientifically documented as well. I think he went somewhere around 3 months without consuming any food or water,
right?
Purely just meditating.
Yeah.
I've forgotten the type of meditation that would have been, some sort of like pranic or tantric.
It's the same thing as when you get these gurus that can lie on beds of nails and walk through fire, and they don't get hurt because they're just not allowing that reality to enter their consciousness. Mind over matter, really,
Yeah, I mean, it's in the realms of possibility, and I've got a minimal understanding of that. As with being a Reiki practitioner, I can, feel subtle energies, and my clients have reported the benefits and felt the energies. So I can, and through meditation as well. But yeah, certainly a million miles away, I've been able to sustain without consuming food or water.
Right.
But yeah, I think it's possible. Yeah.
So meat eating is often linked with cancer, particularly bowel cancer, and it's especially red meat. You hear that it lies undigested in the bowel for several months, I think people say. So if there really is a link between consistent eating of meat and contracting of cancer, it seems the demonic controllers have got 2 bites of the cherry with this one, because they've got all the fear-based energy out there and all the animals being slaughtered, and they've got a whole bunch of people going down with cancer, which obviously aids their big pharmaceutical cartels and culls the population. So everyone's a winner if you're a psychopathic controller.
Most of their they're clever people. They know this stuff intimately, and they have done for thousands of years. So it seems like everything they do has a double-edged sword. It doesn't seem to just have one effect. It normally has multifaceted effects that further their agenda, for sure.
Right. What practical advice would you give to someone then that, first of all, a meat eater wishing to become vegetarian, but really not knowing how to implement it and what the first step should be, and also vegetarians that really want to take things a step further and go fully vegan? Because from my personal perspective, I had no problem losing the meat back in the day, 28 years ago, no problem at all, found that very easy. And when I wanted to go vegan, I had no problem losing the milk. I just replaced dairy milk with almond milk, coconut milk and such. No problem losing the eggs, no problem losing the butter, but I struggled with cheese. That was my stumbling block, because that's the foundation of a vegetarian diet, basically, particularly when you eat out or if you travel a lot like I do. Often the only option is a cheese sandwich or a pizza with cheese on or something like that. So it's very difficult to lose the cheese, and it took me a long time to finally knock it on the head. It took a lot of willpower, a lot of researching alternatives. So is there any practical advice you could give to those 2 groups of people that really have good intentions, but they just want to know how they can go about it?
Yeah, I can relate with the cheese thing, and I wasn't attached to it like yourself, but I found it very difficult to avoid. I do a fair bit of travelling as well. In fact, that's how I started listening to you, Mark. So I travel up to Manchester regularly to see my little girl who lives there, and you've accompanied me on many journeys with the Good Vibrations series.
Well, that's good to know.
Yeah, man. So avoiding cheese was the hardest thing, but I found that as long as you felt full, because that's what we get hungry, right? We desire food, we need nutrition, but once that's been satisfied, then you're not hungry anymore. So I found that as long as I was eating well and filling myself up, the hardest thing was avoiding it. So you've got like pasta dishes, and if we were talking about on the go, when you're on the go, so like to rock up at a service station, you can get some pasta dishes, but then they do like falafel, spinach options. You can still have crisps. Do read the ingredients, because they do like to sneak things in.
Well, they do. I mean, it depends how strict you want to be, I suppose, because a lot
Yeah.
of crisps and biscuits and cakes, I mean, cakes have egg in for the most part,
Yeah.
but you'll often see skimmed milk in crisps,
Yeah,
and you'll
yeah.
see dried egg in
And
certain things.
beef in Haribo, and
Yeah.
then mints that have got beef in as well. It's just
And I tell you,
it's-
Walker's Smoky Bacon crisps, they've started putting dried pork shoulder in it, so it actually contains meat.
yeah.
So you've got
yeah.
to be careful. You've got to read
Yeah,
it.
no, you really have got to read what's in them, and it can be quite daunting. And I get this whole embracing truth is why a lot of people put it off, because you're taking information on board, and people were like, well, where do you draw the line? I don't want to get a degree in chemistry, because that's what it seems that I need when I look on the back of a packet with the ingredients. So some of the things you just don't know what they are. But if we know what the main things are to avoid, obviously there's the aspartames and the sweeteners.
Sure.
But
numbers.
the things that contain gelatin that they sneak into, I'll say, mints and sweets. And just look at the ingredients. If it's got animal stuff on it, just pick up something else. You will have to use your mind. You will have to, think a little bit and read the ingredients. But it's all very doable. If I can do it, if you can do it, anyone can do it. It's just the exercise of the will and care, and putting information in the first place. But there's loads of alternatives. At home, again, going back to hemp seed, you get deshelled organic hemp seed. So I mean, it's a great nutritional boost. I have it with my cereals, porridge. I'll use it. I add it to couscous. I make a couscous mix with some hemp seed and beans or pulses. As long as you're covering the nutritional bases and you're getting full, then it's just doing it. It's just actually doing it. I'd say get a juicer.
Yeah, juicing is a good move.
If you're gonna go vegan, veggie, juice, man. I've got a juice right now, actually.
Yep.
As we're talking.
Get a NutriBullet or something similar.
Something like that, and whack load of organic stuff through it. So again, like to develop true care, you've got to care about yourself. So you've got to care about what you're putting into your body.
Right.
So, again, when you're looking at meat causes disease. So if you really care about yourself, you'd stop eating it on that basis, let alone a moral basis.
Well, yeah.
So you'd also go organic, because if you're not organic, you're inorganic. And what does that mean? Well, that means toxins and pesticides and poisons. And obviously, anybody with half a brain cell knows that that's not conducive to good health. So, juice up loads. Go organic, go vegan, and you're not only going to be moral, but you're going to be showing yourself some love. And that's where true care really begins. And then once you really care about yourself, you can then care about other people and other beings, eh?
Right. And the thing about juicing is you get to consume so much more than you would if you were actually eating those vegetables or, whatever it is, the fruit, whatever it is you're juicing. You can ram a whole load of spinach in there and some seeds and stuff. You'd never sit there and eat a plate of that much spinach, but it's easy to consume it in the form of juice.
Yeah, I'll do a shot once a week, and I'll try and get 2 juices in there, not 2 big juices. Sometimes I only get the one, so often I put a whole bag of spinach and a whole bag of kale in.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like you say, there's no way you'd just munch through that. And I mean, it takes out the bulk, it takes out the fibre, but you're left with all of the nutrition. Because as with the human body, the blood pumps around, the heart pumps the blood around, and the blood contains all the nutrition that's supplied around the body. And that's the same with plants. In the juice is where the nutrition and energy is. So you're taking out the bulk and you're putting it in an easily digestible, easily assimilated format, so it can be readily absorbed into your body. And if after having a bag of kale and a bag of spinach in a pint glass, you literally feel the energy come in you.
Yeah.
the clarity, like tingles up your spine sometimes. Yeah, I'd recommend it to anybody, especially if you're going to go vegan. So you want to cover the bases. You want to make sure you're getting the nutrition.
And when I'm out and about on the move and I don't have time to juice myself, I buy cold press juices. So you can get a lot of smoothies, innocent smoothies and all these similar brands, Naked, but they're all pasteurised. And what you hear is the pasteurisation process loses a lot of the minerals and vitamins, whereas if you go for the cold pressed juice, that keeps as much of it in as possible. So you can get cold pressed juices from most supermarkets. You just got to look for that process.
That's very true, Mark. Yeah. I mean, I'd still I'd rather fill up on a pasteurised drink than dine on an immoral rotting flesh sandwich. So,
well, yeah, and better a pasteurised one than one full of aspartame and bloody refined sugar and
Yeah, and then the same with dairy. You know, these animals are actually pumped full of antibiotics and growth hormones and. Now that's all coming through.
And people don't think they're taking that into themselves when they eat it.
Yeah, absolutely. And well, a lot of them are fed genetically modified food as well. And you know, if we do any research into the effects of genetically modified food, you can see it's very harmful to life. Mutations. You know, there's kids in America that have got allergies to literally all the food groups because of the amount of GM food. But then you cut out the GM food in their diets and they shortly return to good health. And, you know, antibiotics, you know, causing these very resistant diseases, superbugs. I understand in the farming industries that they use literally the most powerful antibiotics that we've got and very, very readily. So, you know, we're going to end up we're going to be creating some nasty bugs that are resistant to all known antibiotics at this rate, with these farming practices and misuse of antibiotics. And like you say, not just that, we are literally consuming that lower vibration energy.
The process of meat eaters wanting to become vegetarian and existing vegetarians wanting to take it a step further to veganism is something that you might have to do in stages, right? And you might slip up a few times and maybe you shouldn't feel too bad. You're trying to make quite a major lifestyle change. If you slip up a couple of times, just pick yourself up when you feel ready and have another go, because it's like giving up smoking, I guess. You know, you don't do it all in one go. It's a gradual process.
Yeah, it took me a few times to quit smoking. And I think the statistics about that is apparently it takes about 7 attempts to quit smoking,
right,
on average, and that makes sense. That rings true. It's a very addictive, nasty habit, and it takes a lot of willpower to overcome that. With the food, I mean, if you're really attached to tastes, they do some great alternatives. You know, like steak. You know, vegetarian steak pies or fake chicken nuggets. Linda McCartney's got a good range of, you know, sausage. It might not be organic, but you know, the tastes there. If you're really attached to that particular taste, you know. It's just the stepwise thing, and just try it. That's the thing. You know, make the decision. Once you know, how about watch Earthlings? There we go. There's
a challenge.
Watch Earthlings, and then if that doesn't work, watch it again.
Watch Earthlings, and if you go straight out for a McDonald's, it's not worked.
But it's possible, mate. You know, I mean, it's something we should all take on board, and especially when you apply objective morality.
Right. So you often hear that people come to a full realisation of the immorality of carnism and the exploitation of animals generally from sort of out-of-body or psychedelically induced states of consciousness, whether it's an ayahuasca trip or whatever. You know, they come to this realisation and they're never the same again. So this does tend to suggest that it's a fundamental truth. It's not just some objective thing that one person can agree with and somebody else can disagree with. You know, truth is it either is or it isn't. And if people are having these experiences when they access these altered states of consciousness, it does tend to suggest that, you know, it's a truth that's just waiting to get tapped into. Would you agree?
Yeah, some people do have that. I mean, I think using psychedelics or entheogenic compounds, as we break down the words, psychedelic means psyche delusion, which is to make the mind clear, or entheogen, we look at the divine within. That's what that means when we look at the Latin. Yeah, people come back. I think they help when they're used consciously, just with morality in general, and wanting to be a better person. Yes, and some people come back with the message that they should stop eating animals because it's wrong, and it's right. That is the it is wrong. So no, I mean I'm a fan of the conscious use of entheogens for self exploration and self growth. And there's so much evidence if you were to look at it, the benefits of these. And again, well, if we look at Satanism and how they operate, the satanic pentagram points down, right? That's the downward pointing.
Yeah.
So we've mentioned the war on consciousness, but if we look at we've got to bear that in mind, and then we look at what's legal and what's illegal. What are the two most harmful drugs that we can put in our bodies? Alcohol and tobacco. Those are the ones that are legal.
What does that tell you?
Yeah, exactly. I think it's Professor Nutt. There's a government drug harm chart. You can Google that, have a look at it, and it shows alcohol and tobacco right at the most harmful ones. Right at the very, very end, the least harmful drug known. Mushrooms.
Right.
But what are you allowed and what aren't you allowed?
Yeah. And what's demonized and frowned upon in society?
Yeah. Yeah, but they're very, very powerful plant teachers, and I get why there's people are going to be fearful of them, because they make you face your shit.
Oh yeah.
You can't turn away from it. You've got nowhere to hide, and I'm sure that not only is it, I've changed my diet, I've fallen in love with truth. Alongside that, I have been using psychedelics consciously, and they do go hand in hand. They have helped me grow as a person, and realise things on a deeper level, so to speak.
Right,
yeah.
right. So it's the responsible use of, we're not talking about taking this stuff at the weekend to have a party and have a good time, It's from a mature, responsible perspective.
Yes, yeah. I think that's why they're here. Check out some Terence McKenna. There's plenty of evidence out there to support that humans have grown up alongside these plant teachers. Where's the phrase "holy shit" comes from? Hindus highly revere the cow, where the mushrooms used to grow around the cow shit. Well, Joe Rogan talks about all this sort of stuff as well. There's plenty of information out there. There's the documentary DMT, the spirit molecule. Jeremy Narby's book, the DNA, the cosmic serpent, I think it is. He's an anthropologist that goes off to the South Americas to spend some time with the Shipibo shamans. He has an ayahuasca trip. That's where I learned about the 250,000 different types of plants in the Amazon, and how they came to get the recipes for medicines by taking entheogens and communicating with the plants. I mean, it's fascinating.
Right.
We can realise that we're all one on these substances, and the studies have proven that.
That's why they don't want us taking them.
No doubt. I'm pretty sure that they take them though, in their rituals and whatnot.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, man. Well, fascinating stuff today. Is there anything we've not covered that you wanted to add, or have we pretty much got it all in there?
Yeah, we've done well. We've covered. I think we've covered pretty much all of it.
I feel so.
I mean, there's a few quotes that we could read, but shall I read a couple of quotes? I've got a couple of quotes.
Yeah, let's just wrap up. We'll finish on a couple of potent quotes.
Okay, mate. Yeah, one of my favourites, Nikola Tesla quote. He's saying, "It's certainly preferable to raise vegetables, and I think, therefore, that vegetarianism is a commendable departure from the established barbarous habit. That we can subsist on plant food and perform our work even to advantage is not a theory, but a well-demonstrated fact. Many races living almost exclusively on vegetables are of superior physique and strength. There is no doubt that some plant food, such as oatmeal, is more economical than meat, and superior to it in regard to both mechanical and mental performance. In view of these facts, every effort should be made to stop the wanton and cruel slaughter of animals, which must be destructive to our morals. It's a good one. Paul McCartney, if slaughterhouses had glass walls, everyone would be a vegetarian.
Paul McCartney, or is
Paul
it?
McCartney, oh yeah.
Sorry. That's just, ignore me, don't worry.
No, I was waiting to say it there, mate.
Yeah. William Shears Campbell. Anyway, next one, yeah?
Leo Tolstoy, a man can live and be healthy without killing animals for food. Therefore, if he eats meat, he participates in taking animal life merely for the sake of his appetite. And to act so is immoral. And he's got another one where he says, all the whilst we have slaughterhouses, we will have battlefields. Yeah, so there's more, but that
sets the tone nicely.
I think we've covered everything, mate, to be fair.
Yep, I feel so. All right, man, well, we've had a really good conversation today.
Thanks.
There's probably a few people that have been left a bit uncomfortable by it. Hopefully, a whole bunch of people have been inspired by it. But either way, we've put the information out there and people can make of it what they will. So just want to thank you for coming on today and sharing your thoughts with us. Much appreciated.
Thank you for having me on, Mark. It's been a pleasure, mate.
Yeah, come on. Give me the veggies, give me the fruits. Yeah. Give me the greens, give me the roots. What? Give me the seeds, give me legumes. Come on. I got what you need, I'm giving you truth. I'm a vegan. You could say this is a truth ballad. I start my day off with a fruit salad. I'm carved up, feeling healthy and full of energy. Food is my prevention, I don't need chemical remedies. I don't take prescription pills, I'm never feeling sick or ill. Unless we talking about the rhymes I spit and how I flip my skill. This is real, gotta maintain fitness. Being vegan ain't a diet, it's a lifestyle and we live this. Plant-based bigness, you see the way I lift this. Big heavyweight, I ain't protein deficient. Food is big business and you know the corporations lie. Why would they tell the truth about the products they supply? When they know that they are harmful and they cause disease. All you need is to do the research and start to read about the business of animal agriculture. We ain't carnivores or hunters, we are scavengers like vultures. A scavenger eats decomposing flesh. Carnivores hunt and kill, they prey and eat it raw and fresh. Yeah, we can eat meat, but that doesn't mean we have to. That doesn't mean it's natural. That doesn't mean we can't choose a different way of living that'll help the ecosystem and save the animals who are suffering as victims of enslavement, rape, exploitation, and murder, so that overfed people can enjoy a cheeseburger.
But Diesel, I can't help it, I just love the taste.
Well, I love having sex, but that don't mean that I should rape. That don't mean that I should take something that is not mine. Carnivore and cannibal are separated by a fine line of morality.
But Diesel, plants are living too, so when you eat them, you are still causing casualties.
True, but it takes tons of plants to feed the animals. So being vegan saves the plants, the animals, and planet too. Deforestation, a sick population, and animal suffering are results of indoctrination by the corporations who only care about their bottom line. A way that you can fight them is to go vegan, and now's the time. Yeah, come on. Give me the veggies, give me the fruits. Yeah. Give me the greens, give me the roots. What? Give me the seeds, give me legumes. Come on. I got what you need, I'm giving you truth. I'm a vegan. Give me the veggies, give me the fruits. Yeah. Give me the greens, give me the roots. What? Give me the seeds, give me legumes. Come on. I got what you need, I'm giving you truth. I'm a vegan.